So I finished the most anticipated book release of the year for most people this year. At least it was one of my most anticipated releases. So we're here today to talk about it. Here is your clue. I mean, it's in the title, so you guys already know what we're talking about today. Hi friends, welcome back to my channel. My name is Chrissy and this is my cozy corner. In today's video, as you could already tell, I'm going to be doing a book review on the third book in the Empyrean series by Rebecca Yarros, Onyx Storm. So I'm really excited to do my book review on Onyx Storm today. As many of you out there, I was highly anticipating this release. It's very well beloved by myself and she's so many fans. Now, I ended up ordering one from Amazon and it got here like Tuesday evening, but I got up early on Tuesday at 3 o'clock in the morning because this released online to order from Target and I couldn't get it. It kept kicking me out, telling me that like the website kept shutting down. So then I got myself ready for work early, drove to Target, stood in the freezing cold to try to get a copy. And there was enough left when I was sitting in line, but a bunch of people grabbed two. So I ended up not getting one and the totes ended up selling out too. So I was pretty disappointed, but I ended up finding somebody I went to high school with who gave me a good deal and she ended up picking two. So she sold her other copy to me. So I got really lucky in that aspect. I'm not doing a review for the Target edition, but I will say the illustrations inside were not what I was expecting. Like, that's really why I wanted it. And I could do without it, but I still love it. Like, I still like it. I don't know what's going on with that. That's how a lot of them are. But I also ordered the tote online. They had one left in stock when I got home. And I got the Terran pin right here. So I'm excited to have that. And I know I look ridiculous, but because of the video, I am going to be repping Wing Leader. So I wanted to wait to do this video or the review on the book because I wanted to sit in my thoughts and feelings. Yes, I rate things off of vibes and just love for a series, but if it wasn't a 5-star, I'm not gonna give it a 5-star unless all the vibes were there, even if it wasn't a perfect book. So I'm gonna go into the things that I liked about the book and maybe some things that I thought that I didn't necessarily love. So let's jump right on in. So I'm going to do a spoiler-free section and a spoiler-filled section. We're gonna go ahead and start off with the spoiler-free section. I can't say too much about what I didn't love about it without spoiling it. So what I can say is that some of the reactions skewed, I think, my judgment of parts of the book. People would be like, chapter blah, 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 when, you know, on TikTok, they would say the chapter. So I would be anticipating something to happen, or I would be anticipating that chapter. I tried to scroll fast, but it just came up. It just came up in my feed because I'm on Book Talk. And when I got to that chapter, I was just like, oh, okay, you know, yeah, all right, cool. Another thing I would say is I thought the pacing was pretty good. Like, I felt like there were so many things that we learned that were necessary in the book. I don't have too many complaints about this book, to be quite frank. There was some POVs, point of views, that were kind of thrown in a part that I felt like we should have did that earlier on in the book. And also there was a POV that I felt like should have been in there consistently throughout the book to give a larger impact for me personally. So those were really all the things that I could complain without spoiling anything for you guys. So let's talk about the things that I loved about the book, which was a lot actually. As far as things that I loved about the book, I did mention that I liked the pacing. I thought it was pretty decent. Now, the pacing, I think, of the first book was very fast, and I think the pacing of the second book was slow in the beginning, but then when it amped up all the way to the end. I think it was like the first 200-ish pages, and then the rest was pretty fast-paced after that. This one I felt like was a consistent pace. Like, we would have slow moments and then high moments, and then slow moments and then high moments, but I thought this was nice, and I think that it was done that way because we got more of an expansive world. We get to learn more about the world in this book and the lore, and that was one of my favorite things, is learning more about this. The world building was so much more vast. Like, we have so much more world building in this book. I can't say why, but I absolutely loved that part. There is a quest or traveling aspect of this book, which is absolutely one of my favorite things in fantasy books is when we are going on a quest or when we are going on a mission somewhere else that is not your like normal setting of the book. You got to learn about different like cultures and ways and different parts, which I absolutely appreciated. Another thing was the characters. The characters are always so good. I think Rebecca Yarros wrote some amazing characters, and I think about them every day. From day one, Riddick has been one of my favorite characters in this book, and you get more of Riddick. And that's not a spoiler, because if you love him, then you're just going to be excited to see more of him, and he is just absolutely adorable. I still loved the romance between Xaden and Violet. That still continued to be strong. One of my favorite things as far as character development goes is in the first book, I feel like Violet was already a badass. She was getting things done even with her disorder and finding a way around it because she's so smart. In the second book, Violet did annoy me quite a bit as far as like, I want to say like some things in the beginning, not forgiving Xaden and not understanding his perspective. And I feel like in this book, it was Violet matured. Violet was a badass. She was I think the most badass I've ever seen her. I say badass 5 times fast. I've said that like so many times. There was also some revelations that happened in this book that I had been waiting for. Maybe you hadn't been waiting for it, but I definitely had been waiting for some things. And I don't want to say whether I was disappointed or not, because I definitely don't want to skew anybody's judgment going into this book. Like mine was already kind of like, I was already like judging parts because of that. So I definitely don't want that to happen. But overall, I did like this book. I would say as far as spice scale, I would give it maybe like a 2 stars for spice, like a 2 spice, not 2 stars, 2 spicy, 2 chili peppers. And then for the overall review, I'm going to give it a 4 star. Ultimately, I think I decided to land on a 4 star with this book. I love this book. I thought it was great. I was never bored, not for a minute. I loved being with the characters again. I think I just decided on that rating because I actually didn't love this one as much as the other 2. And I say that because there was things I was expecting more from this book that didn't necessarily happen, and that's okay because the book is still amazing. But it is, I think, my least favorite in this series. And I say that because Fourth Wing, I think, was just so action-packed. And then Iron Flame and Onyx Storm level up in the, like, more of a vast world fantasy type of way. But I feel like for this one, the highs weren't as high and the lows weren't as low as the other 2 books is all. Now, I preferred the lore and the world building in Onyx Storm. It's one of my favorite series of all time, and it took me rereading the books to actually love them. And I might just have to reread this one soon because Fourth Wing and Iron Flame I didn't love nearly as much the first go around as I did on the reread. So it might take me the reread to do it, but I did love the story. I did love the story. I love being back with the characters. Again, there were just a couple things that I wanted more out of, and that is all 4 stars. Still absolutely loved it. Oh, and one more thing. Xaden freaking Riorson, he is perfect. Like, I don't care how basic that is to say, but he is one of my favorite book boyfriends of all time. I feel like he could do no wrong, and I love Riddick too. Riddick is another one that I'm like absolutely obsessed with. But as far as Xaden goes, I came out of this book and I just kept thinking, why aren't I Violet Sorrengail? And why isn't Xaden my man? Like, I wanted to go back in. I wanted to crawl back into the book. So I obviously really did like it a lot. So no hate comments there, because just because I gave it a 4 stars does not mean I did not love it, because I did love it. Okay, so let's start with my spoiler-filled review now. Now, as far as some of the plot things that happened in the book, now, when we're just 100 pages in, and they're going to, I think it was Llewellyn, right, to save Marian's family, and then Taryn gets, like, super injured, and I'm like, all these theories are talking about, we think Taryn's gonna die, we think Taryn's gonna die, and I'm like, no, he's not. And then 100 pages in, he's injured, and I'm like, you are not gonna kill him in the first 100 pages. I was freaking out. Like, absolutely. Rebecca Yarros loves to just do that to us. Now, probably one of my biggest disappointments here, and it was one of my few guesses, I was wrong. Like, Violet's signet is, again, this is spoiler filled, by the way, so hopefully you've clicked off by now, was not distance wielding. And I made a whole video where I was convinced, like to the point where I had sat here and annotated these books finding evidence of her being a distance wielder, and come to find out it's freaking Garrett. I did tell my best friend, I said, if Violet's not a distance wielder, it's either going to be Auric or Eric. How do y'all say it? Anyway, we're gonna say Auric or Garrick. Like I was like, we don't even know what he does. Like, what is his signet? Garrett's signet. And it was very suspicious that Eric's was like not manifesting. And I was like, I know he has something super important. And I thought it was either going to be precognition for Eric or distance wielding. But again, like I said, you're not right if you are saying, oh, it could be this, this, or this. So I was so disappointed when I read that he was a distance wielder. Like Garrick was the distance wielder. So disappointed. I could not tell you. Like, I was convinced convinced that she was a distance wielder, just the same as the next person was convinced that she was a truthsayer, or like all these other things. And I was really disappointed to find out she was an intrinsic, because it's like, again, the mate thing. Like, oh, first mates are rare, and then it's like, you get a mate, you get a mate. I did not want her to be intrinsic. I did not want her to have precognition. I didn't want her to have that much power, because her first signet is already so powerful, and I don't really love it when a character is overpowered. But again, she does have the disorder where she is affected as far as, like, you know, her muscle tissue and bones and all that stuff breaks down a lot easier. Like, a punch on her arm is gonna hurt way more than a punch on just like the average cadet's arm or whatever. But I was so convinced, and I thought dreamwalking at one point. I was like, wait, is it something dealing with the dreams? When I was rereading, I was like, no, it can't be. I think it just has something to do with her and Xaden's bond. I was convinced that when Rebecca said she made it obvious, I was like, oh, that's probably just because they're bonded. I think those are his, and she's just seeing them and it has something to do with the bond. I was a little disappointed that I was wrong, but yeah. But also still a little disappointed that it was that. I did not want her to be intrinsic. Another thing that bothered me a little bit in this book is Basgiath should have had a lot of like rubble lying around, which, like, I don't remember if it said anything about that. It should have been kind of like impacted quite a bit from that final battle in Ironflame. And one of the things I was excited about going into this book is seeing the impact of the final battle, not just as far as like visually, but like mentally with Violet. Like, I feel like Sloane was kind of more beat up about her mother's death than she was. And I know her and her mother had a difficult relationship, and that might have had something to do with it. And she does mention her mother several times and how she is upset, and it's hard for her right now that, you know, she died and that happened. But I don't feel like there was enough like deep dive into what she was thinking. And it could also be because they have a war. She is trying to get allies. She's trying to do all these things. So it might have been, this is more important right now than how I'm feeling about my mother's death. But again, I still wish we had at least like a dedicated few chapters to the impact emotionally on her from her mother's death, and also some mentions of how the college was like impacted as far as like, you know, it seemed like things were like kind of up and running. My heart was beating the whole time, like out of my chest. I was having so much anxiety while reading this book. I understand a lot of people wanted to see, like, they're like, oh, he's just like a little Ven, and he's not. But again, they said you have to channel more power from the earth to become like a full-on Venin. And I think it was necessary to see Xaden not a full Venin yet, just to see the stepping stones and him trying to pull back from it. Almost like if you think of like a drug addiction or something, like if you think in the sense of trying to resist something you're addicted to, I think it was important to see that from Xaden and see him fight this demon inside him. The next thing that I was like not totally excited about is the emotional impact of Andarna leaving on me. Like, I was devastated when Andarna left. I was like tearing up, and watching Violet go through such grief losing Andarna was so hard. But then she comes back, like, I don't remember if it was a couple chapters later, but she came back, so it kind of took the emotional impact of her leaving away. But again, that begs the question here, does she leave again though? Did she just come back to save Violet? I'm a little conflicted on this because on one end it was emotional that she left and then it took it away when she came back, but on the other end she wouldn't just leave Violet to die if she is still bonded to her, which it obviously seemed like she was. She's gonna come back and help her girl. Like, she's not gonna just like leave her there. So maybe she just came back to help her and then left. We'll have to leave again to go back with the other Irids. But yeah, I'm not sure about that one, but I was a little not disappointed to see Andarna, but just like my grief didn't last as long because she came back so fast. Look, I've been dying for a Rhi point of view. I love Rhi. I missed her in this book. She was gone because, and I understand, she had to stay back and be the amazing squad leader that she is. And Violet was on a mission and she had a team that did not include Rhi for reasons, obviously, like they explained. But it still killed me that she was, like, we were missing our main squad, Rhi and Riddick, Sawyer, and Violet together, which I'm so glad Riddick went though, because he's like one of my favorite characters ever, so I'm so glad he went. Some of my favorite things about this book, let's talk about favorite things, is obviously Xaden freaking Riorson. Riddick, he's hilarious. Like the comment where he was like, they were like, you know, I don't F second years, and he's like, good thing I F like a third year. And then the lightning comment was so funny, but then Xaden came back and was like, that strike wasn't big enough, so I knew you guys weren't doing anything. Just like having Riddick there and him having chemistry with everybody just was everything to me. And the whole like quest to the different continents, and we learn more about like the Isle Kingdoms. I loved that. Like, this world is so much bigger than we ever anticipated. And then we learn more about what like General Sorrengail was really like studying, like traveling to the different continents and trying to figure things out and writing it down for Violet. I loved that, and I love the different ways, like when you show up, like when they were trying to forge an alliance with these different continents or different countries. It was just so interesting and horrible at the same time. That whole scene with Ferris and like Garrett eating the chocolate cake that almost killed him, and then Violet was like, yeah, well, by the way, I poisoned the tea. So, oh, such a badass. I was like, Violet freaking Sorrengail, like, this is everything. Oh my goodness. And I'm all for just like a little jealousy in books, but I cannot handle the cat situation in Iron Flame. The first read, it was unbearable, the back and forth between Violet and Cat. The second read was not so bad, but I still like did not like the Petty X stuff. And this book did not have the Petty X stuff. He was just kind of there being a total just like ass, Holden was. And Xaden, when he hits him with his like shadow really hard when Holden is like talking to Violet when he first shows up, and Xaden gets a little jealous, like that was so good. That was just enough to the point where it's like, I like the taste of that, but don't give me any more. Like, I don't need any more, because we're in a mature relationship here. I'm gonna be 34 years old in April. I don't really like the petty jealousy stuff in books. So that's why I struggled a little bit in parts in Iron Flame with it, and I thought it was just enough in Onyx Storm. Another thing that I loved was Arc having precognition, because I just knew when people were saying Violet was gonna have it as far as a signet, I knew that couldn't be it. I was like, that's just way too strong. And I'm actually surprised that Violet didn't figure out sooner that he had it, because he was already giving her clues before she had figured it out. So would that make him intrinsic though? Because that's a pretty, like, I don't remember if it said it is. I would think it would be. I really like him as a character. He's definitely probably one of my favorites too. Again, the characters are absolutely amazing in this book. I love them. I even like started to grow to like Cat, and I was absolutely like gut punched for Cat when Traeger got killed when they were off trying to forge an alliance with the Isle Kingdoms. And he took the arrow to the heart, and obviously when it said it went in his heart, he's not gonna live through this. He's not gonna live through this. And they had to respond with thank you. Like, that was vile. Vile in like the best way, as far as like, I still love the book, but my jaw was like, she found somebody that was making her happy, and she wasn't even like talking about Xaden anymore, and that was just That was so sad. Going back to like towards the end of the book, coming into that final battle, I have had this theory, and many of us have had this theory forever. Naolan is Venin. Naolan channeled from the earth to save Brennan. This to me is not canon yet, but I feel like it should be at this point. To save Brennan, resurrect him, he channeled. They were lovers. I think they were lovers. I think they were together. I think they were in love. And I think he could not live without him. In the same thing that Xaden did, channel from the earth to save Violet, Naolan did that for Brennan. That is why Brennan has the like rune shape on his, I think it's on his wrist. Now, when they were channeling with Dane and Sloane and trying to help him with Mira, no mark happened. And even Violet notices that, and I have had this theory since the first time I read Iron Flame, whenever it came out. Was it 2023 or 2024? I have had this theory since before somebody mentioned it. I even said it to my best friend. I wish I would have saved that snap. I snapped her in the video, and I was like, Brennan was in love with Naolan. Naolan channeled and became Venin. Like, literally said that from the beginning. And for me, when Violet noticed the rune on his hand and she thought it was weird that it didn't happen again, that confirmed to me that Naolan absolutely turned Venin for the same reason. Now, coming further into the end of the book, when Xaden sees a new brother, did not think that person would do that. I think it's Garrick. I think Garrick channeled and ended up turning. It can't be Dane, because I don't think Dane was in that area. It's either Garrick, Brennan, or Bodhi, and I feel like we would have known if it was Brennan, and Brennan becoming Venin. If Naolan is Venin, I think is just too convenient. So I think it's Garrick. And Imogen, I believe, sees something in his eyes in her point of view. Okay, so this is a couple days later. I waited to do my review like almost a week after I read the book to process things, and then I'm still processing things, and I felt like I had to insert this clip in the spoiler-filled section. So this is in the spoiler section. I went back and reread some parts in this book, and I've came to some like possible conclusions. So I don't think Garrick now is the Venin brother, because they call the brothers like not their real brother, like Bodhi is his cousin, but like a brother to him, not like in the sense of a real brother, but like they said Jack, like your Venin brother about Xaden. I'm starting to think it's Bodhi, and not because of the brother thing, because of course our ending, we find out that Violet is basically going to be the Duchess of Tyrrendor, and why else would they make this plan where that happens? Because he was worried about Tyrrendor the whole time, and he kept saying the whole time, if something happens to me, Bodhi, you gotta take over. You gotta take over. So the only way to like really protect it, I feel like, is being married to Violet, and Violet. So I think like right before her memories got wiped, you know, they went and they made it official. Well, they obviously went and they made it official because Bodhi became Venin. When Xaden is like, he's watched me struggle this whole time. It could be Garrett. It could be Bodhi. Like, they both watched him struggle. Brennan, like, caught on, but didn't, like, watch, like, Garrett and Bodhi and Violet and the Imogen and the ones who were close to him. Sorry, I'm sick, so, but I still had to record this. So, it has to in my eyes, it has to be Bodhi or Garrett. And I think it's going to be either of those two, but I'm starting to lean towards Bodhi now. And Arik, being precog, has been working with Xaden the whole time. Like, he has to have been working with him the whole time, because there is parts in here, like there was a scene, I wish I would have tapped it, but I like went back and found it. I can't even remember what page it was on, because I did this last night, like in the dead of the night. Wasn't gonna turn my camera on, and I don't know why I didn't tap it, but anyway, I believe Xaden says something to the sorts of, no, it's Eric, and he's like, she would be a good politician, talking about Violet, and then then Xaden was like, or Duchess. So it's like they have been in cahoots the whole time, and I think Xaden has known. He keeps saying, we gotta protect him, make sure he's safe, make sure he's safe. Talking about Eric, he's known the whole time, not the whole time, but he's known probably at least since Eric's signet has manifested. He's known that Eric, and I'm sure they have been confiding in each other, and Eric has seen things, and I think the like ending result of Xaden pulling or channeling more from the earth and becoming more venom. I think that like we have a Doctor Strange moment happening here where Eric and him like spoke about it. He told him what he saw, and it was like he said something about it being the only way. So I am like stuck on this book, and I'm starting, like, I know I gave it a 4-star or a 4.25, but I'm starting to have like higher feelings about this, because the more I look back at it, the more I like flip back through it, like scan and then find things. It's very intentional. There's a lot of like, it's so intentional, and stuff you think is filler is not actually filler. Like some of these people, like they're like, who's Traeger? Well, Traeger was in Iron Flame, and the first years you have to remember, they start naming their names, and Violet is like, who are these people? And then a lot of people are like us, we're like, who are these people? And it's because Violet didn't want to know the first year's names because they always die. Remember, she says that, I believe she says it in Iron Flame. And she's like, that's why she didn't know their names. So I think that that was intentionally put in there as kind of a nod to that. If you maybe felt like it was a filler book and you were a little disappointed but didn't do the reread, I definitely suggest at some point, we have a long time probably for the next book, but doing like a full reread on it, because that really helped me appreciate the stuff in this book, the information that is given to us in this book. It really made me appreciate it more. And I'm starting to think like, I don't know which one I like the best out of the three. I think they're all great. I still think the first one for some reason just holds a special place in my heart. But I think that Onyx Storm and Iron Flame focus more on this like interesting world. Fourth Wing is more of like, we are at Basgiath College. We do learn about the various territories around in the continent. And then we find out Arisha. Like we find out that is still well alive in Iron Flame. Well, we find out at the end of Fourth Wing, and then in Iron Flame we expand more on that. And then in this one you find out just so much more, and I just love when a world in fantasy gets bigger. So I think I like them both for different reasons, and I think like the foreshadowing in this one has made my like light bulbs in my head just start to like go off. We have click, actually, turn on. We have sirens going off, sirens, ding, 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 ding in my head right now. So anyway, yeah, so I'm gonna stop there, and I might do a reread and maybe like an update with a reread on this pretty soon, because now I'm like obsessed. And the last thing I want to mention is, do we think Andarna holds the cure like this whole time? Isn't she a scorpion tail? Like anti-venom, like scorpion, snakes, like stuff like that. The anti-venom, is that in her, like in her tail? Like, is that the answer? Possibly. Does she know? No, because she would have told somebody if she knew, but Violet is smart enough to figure it out, and I think that Violet is going to eventually figure that out, and maybe that'll be the cure for Xaden and Naolan. So I don't know. What do you think? Let me know down in the comments. What did you think of Onyx Storm? Still loved it. And how would you rank the books? Like, I think Fourth Wing is still my favorite one of the three. And I would say Onyx Storm and Iron Flame are maybe tied. I think I might have just liked Iron Flame a little bit more. And I think it was that heavy plot line at the end of this like impending doom of Xaden turning venom, and like the whole interrogation scene, like all those scenes like struck a chord with me. And I don't feel like a lot of that happened for me in this, but I felt like it was so necessary for the world building. Maybe it's just the emotional impact wasn't there for this one. It almost was there when Mira was going down, but you know, thank goodness nothing happened to Mira. There was a couple moments where I feel like it almost happened, but it didn't quite hit me there. But still a great book. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know what you rated Onyx Storm. I will see you next time. Have a wonderful night, my fantasy girlies. Bye-bye.